I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to the story. All this week we've taken you to Eastern Oregon to learn about the serious problem with groundwater there. Thousands of mostly low-income people using backyard wells are potentially exposed to dangerous levels of nitrates. That's a chemical you cannot taste or smell. The state has known about this problem for decades, but has been unwilling to take on big industry and has not mandated any restrictions to lower the pollution. And that is still the case tonight. Monday, we introduced you to the people who are being hurt most by the tainted water. Tuesday, we looked at the industries that are responsible for the pollution. Last night, we asked, where are the regulators? Because they've done little to stop the pollution. And tonight, we're going to show you what is happening to help the people most impacted. Last summer, a Morrow County commissioner took bold action, and now there is help flowing to the area. The state's getting some of those people clean drinking water and offering free well testing for anyone in the area. Advocates say it is helpful, but that much more needs to be done. In the summer of 2022, Jim Doherty, a Morrow County rancher who at the time was also the board chair for the county commission, had enough. A frustration growing in him for years boiled over. Nobody was doing anything to stop nitrates from contaminating wells used by thousands of mostly low-income people. And nobody was warning those people. So he declared a county emergency.
I sent an email out to some folks and I said, we are going to get tremendous pushback. And they're going to push back for the wrong reasons. I said, but we need to stand strong. I said, because this will be for the county in many ways, the turning point in healing, right? And, I grew thick skin pretty fast.
The pronouncement quickly grabbed headlines. It marked the first time in Oregon history a county had declared an emergency over groundwater. It also marked the beginning of the end of Doherty's time in county politics. Months later, he was recalled from office.
Because this was the right thing to do, and I knew it in my heart.
The forces against him were powerful, but the emergency declaration had its intended effect. It made things happen. It moved the state to begin testing wells and spreading awareness. In September of 2022, the legislature approved an emergency payment of $881,000 to the Oregon Health Authority. It was to test wells in the area and provide special filters for families with high levels of contamination. Governor Tina Kotek went to Morrow County in May of 2023 to promise state help at a town hall meeting. And in the summer of 2023, teams from the Oregon Health Authority followed up and visited more than 1,000 well owners to get samples of their water. OHA sent us this video of the process. Even though the state had identified the problem 3 decades prior, no one had a complete database on how many homes and how many wells were affected.
Each morning we started with a safety briefing and had teams, at least 10 teams in the morning and the evening, out canvassing in neighborhoods. Each team had a English and Spanish speaking individual in the team. So when the door was open, we were able to offer full services.
The state hoped to offer free tests to 3,300 well owners by the end of September, but some roads had no trespass signs and others had no one home. In the end, the state tested, as of late October, the wells of 1,624 households. The EPA says nitrate pollution above 10 milligrams per liter is dangerous for babies and for long-term health. In Morrow County, of the 462 tests, 32% came back higher than 10 milligrams. That represents 147 households. In Umatilla County, of the 1,162 tests, 18% came back higher than 10 milligrams, representing 214 households. Many more homes with wells still need to be tested. And while it's great to warn people now, it's little comfort to some like Maria Martinez, who discovered she's been drinking contaminated water for more than 30 years. She had 2 miscarriages while drinking that tainted water.
Because it's like we're out here, we shouldn't be suffering here with poisonous water, endangering our children, having health issues with them, or other people up here that have issues to have more issues on top with this water.
Maria had her water tested after the county declared the emergency. She said water that she thought was safe actually had nitrate levels 4 times the EPA's danger limit. She's one of many people I met in Morrow County who believe their health problems came from drinking that contaminated water. But no one can prove it. And the public health manager in charge of the well testing for Oregon Health Authority said there's no way to know if Maria's miscarriages or other people's illnesses are linked to that nitrate water.
We do have the research that definitely documents that high nitrates are not good for people. So even if we can't draw a straight line to an individual's health effects, we know that it's not good. And we know that the action is to get people safe water.
So what about the future? What's to be done about the polluted aquifer and the people, as many as 12,000 that use that water for drinking and cooking? First, the state is continuing to urge people in the Lower Umatilla Basin to get their well tested. It's free. And taxpayers are footing the bill for weekly water deliveries to 256 homes in Morrow County and 122 in Umatilla County. All have wells with nitrate readings of 10 or higher. Businesses in the area are funding a group called H2O for Eastern Oregon, which has provided information about the dangers along with testing and filters for 300 well owners. But some wonder, is that all that can be done? Is that the future? Emergency bottles of water delivered every 2 weeks? Forever?
Bottled water is basically a Band-Aid at this point. As the governor, we agree with the governor. She said, folks can't keep lugging jugs of water forever. So folks need to have a permanent water source.
Kristen Ostrom is the executive director of a grassroots nonprofit in Eastern Oregon called Oregon Rural Action. It was founded in 2021 and is concerned about the polluted groundwater in the Lower Umatilla Basin. They're also helping organize residents there.
And so we've got to be looking at our regulations of the sources of the water, as well as looking at the approach that the state of Oregon has been using for 30 years, and that's a voluntary approach by the folks who are contributing the nitrate levels. We have to be looking at that approach. Is that effective as we're continuing to see the nitrate levels go up?
Well, what do you think? Is it effective?
I don't think it's been effective at all. I think community members who are discovering that the water out of their tap is not good to drink don't think that has been effective.
There is one obvious solution that few want to suggest. Cut way back or shut down on the sources of nitrate and make it mandatory. Tell the farmers to stop. Tell the Port of Morrow and other food processors to stop. Tell the feedlots to stop putting nitrates on the ground. Reducing nitrates is an obvious solution to the man who used to be a top executive with the Department of Environmental Quality for Eastern Oregon. What's the long-term solution?
Less nitrogen and less water on the ground. I mean, the only way this can be solved is to have less nitrogen. And I'm not talking about small farmers here. I'm talking about the big industrial circles. There's no regulation at all there. They don't even have to tell the government how much they're putting on the ground. So it's difficult to regulate it under the current rules.
But taking on farming or feedlots or the Port of Morrow is no small task. They're each important economic engines in the area. And farmers, most are not regulated. Jake Madison farms 10,000 acres in Echo, Oregon, about 16 miles from the Port of Morrow. His farm is one of the places that spreads the port's nitrate-laced water. It acts as fertilizer for his crops. He is regulated and monitored by the state because he reuses that port water. But again, most farmers are not. Jake's thought about solutions for the aquifer pollution, things like restricting how close to a well nitrogen-laced water can be put on the soil, or somehow recharging the underground aquifer with fresh water from the Columbia River. And I can hear someone out there saying, well, why don't we just stop farming this land and let it all rest for 100 years?
Don't say it with your mouth full. I mean, at the end of the day, that wouldn't fix it. That wouldn't fix it.
It is true that no one seems to know what it would take to fix the polluted aquifer or how long that would take. But some community members are fed up with the decades of delay and want action now. Raymond Akers, who has a polluted well, wants the Port of Morrow to immediately stop spreading nitrate water anywhere.
I hear that the DEQ just gave them another permit, so they're allowed to just continue doing what they're doing, and no harm, no foul for 4 years, and that's unacceptable. We'll never, in our grandkids' lifetime, get this under control if we don't stop the spigot. Shut the spigot off, then we can start working on a solution.
Mike Pearson also lives in the contaminated zone and agrees it is past time for action.
I got great grandkids. I want it cleaned up so their kids will be gone. I'm not doing this for my own self. I'm looking forward to my grandkids and my great-grandkids.
One thing is crystal clear. 30-plus years of voluntary guidelines has not worked here. The state's efforts have been a failure. The problem of nitrates polluting the aquifer in the Lower Umatilla Basin is worse now than when it was first discovered. Those state testing numbers show the problem is bad in both northern Umatilla and Morrow counties, but it appears worse in Morrow. A different set of tests collected by Morrow County Public Health Office revealed that of 755 households tested, 41% had nitrate levels in their well water that was above that 10 milligram, the EPA's safe limit. That's more than 300 households. Imagine turning on your tap tonight and wondering if there's a chemical you cannot see or smell in your water. That is reality for people living out there, and it needs to change. We've been asking for your comments all this week, and you have not disappointed. If you have more thoughts after tonight's report, please send them our way. The email is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. I look forward to hearing from you. Coming up next on The Story, the city of Portland is trying to figure out how to pay for an all-new form of government, but they've also got to fix the issues the city's dealing with now. The mayor and several city commissioners say one governmental agency is not doing its share, and council was not shy in publicly pointing the finger and calling them out. So who is to blame if not the council? We'll explain after the break. Portland city workers are starting to work on next year's budget, which begins on July 1st. Yes, it really does take that long to get that budget. Top of mind for many, changing Portland's form of government. It's going to be an expensive change. Right now, estimates from the city budget office show it's going to cost about $13 million more per year to run the new government compared to what we have now. The new total will be around $24 million a year. I talked with the city's chief administrative officer, Michael Jordan. He's the guy in charge of the transition. He says he was not surprised by that estimate because we're separating Portland's legislative and executive branches of government for the very first time.
and they need to operate in different modes in the future. And if anybody thought you could pull these things apart and have a 12-member council that was going to operate as a legislative branch with the support that they would need to do that job, and you're going to create an executive branch that has a single point of authority, and again with 26 offices and bureaus, there's no way one person could keep their eye on all of that. The span of control is too big.
The legislative branch, the city councilors, are each going to have their own staff, and the executive branch, that's the city manager, will have deputy city administrators to help manage all the bureaus. But the higher cost estimate did catch the current city commissioners off guard, and some of them have said they want to try and keep costs down as they go through this budget process. This week, they met for a budget work session to talk about their priorities for Portland's money. There are a lot of things competing for that money: economic recovery plans for the city, efforts to reduce crime, and plans to address homelessness. When it comes to that last one, homelessness, they say it's a high priority because it's a high priority for people who live in Portland.
The impact of homelessness on the street, both the humanitarian impact as well as the livability and safety impact, is all I hear about all day long, every day, anywhere I go.
I believe that. But most of the commissioners spent a lot of the session complaining that they're not getting enough help from the county. Commissioner Dan Ryan said the city's been picking up the county's slack when it comes to trying to help people in the streets get into housing.
The county wasn't responding, there was a void. So when I was a dotted line to the county, and well, you weren't here yet, but we got a 5-0 vote to do something. So we started building villages, and we started serving the people that the county wasn't serving. Because when they were putting some of the people into apartments, that wasn't working. They would destroy the apartments and be back out on the streets. They would go into their apartments and make women in particular not feel safe in those single occupancy units. So we had the audacity to be truthful about this crisis and invest in it because it's killing us. It's killing our livability, it's our economic drivers, everything is on this problem, which is why the mayor started with that. So this is one that's complex to me, and I hope that we can get out of it. I hope that the collaboration with the county continues to improve. We don't need more studies from the county on some of these issues. That always puzzles me when they need to do another study when it's pretty obvious to everyone.
We hear that from you, the viewers, a lot as well. Mayor Wheeler agreed with him and said that the city cannot afford to keep filling the gap.
Most of what we do with Safe Rest, with the task sites, even the Street Services Coordination Center and the good work that we've been doing there, the outreach teams that we've developed throughout the Central City Core to try to connect people to services, they are all funded with one-time only funds that will not exist in the upcoming budget. Meanwhile, and I'm not casting aspersion on anybody, I'm just stating a fact, the county has so much money to address homelessness, they can't spend it. They're giving it back. They're defaulting on their ability to spend it. And we're sitting here like the little kid in the front row going, ooh, 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 pick me, pick me.
The city's budget forecast comes out in December, but the budget office director, Tim Grew, says he's not optimistic that the city's going to be flush with cash this time. Commissioners will need to make some choices about what they will and won't choose to fund next year. We'll keep following it and let you know what happens. Coming up next on The Story, we're going to stay on the homeless issue here in Portland and answer a question many of you have sent us in recent months. Is the city doing what is required when it comes to the homeless camps and tents that are blocking the sidewalks? It's all part of a lawsuit settlement over ADA access, and Blair Best got her hands on the first progress report when The Story returns. Yes, the KGW Great Toy Drive is here, and this week internet provider Ziply Fiber will donate a portion of all new installs up to $3,500. Come meet some of the KGW team this weekend and drop off a toy in person on Saturday. We'll have a crew at the Happy Valley Fred Meyer on Sunnyside from 10 till 2. Please bring a little joy to local kids this holiday season. With more, here's some more about Portland's homeless crisis and my challenge talking. We get emails from you fairly often asking if the city is actually following through on its settlement agreement stemming from a lawsuit involving ADA access to sidewalks. A group of Portlanders with disabilities sued the city last spring over all the tents and camps that were blocking their way. Well, this week, the first progress report was released, showing how the city is doing. Blair Best reports.
I just feel that sidewalks...
Tiana Tozer knows what it's like to feel out of place.
We don't matter. We just don't matter. We have never mattered. And it's exhausting being a second-class citizen.
She's part of a group of Portlanders with mobility disabilities that sued the city last year over tents blocking ADA access on public sidewalks.
We shouldn't have to fight for this. We shouldn't have to fight to use the sidewalks.
They settled the case, and the city agreed to remove at least 500 campsites that block sidewalks each year and provide updates on their progress, among other things. The first update came out this week, and it shows from July to September, city crews removed 1,408 campsites. Each had an average of 3 tents.
So they've removed about 4,500 tents in the last quarter.
John DiLorenzo is the attorney behind the case, representing those with disabilities.
It's just that it's overwhelming, but I tell you, they've got $16 million budgeted to do this.
Another part of the agreement, posting no camping signs to keep people from returning.
We've got some reports that some of the city contractors are not instructing people who are displaced to not recamp on sidewalks, but we'll work on that. This is just the first quarter.
So while many sidewalks across the city are in fact cleared of tents, that's not the case for many sidewalks here in Old Town.
I'm loading everything up and going and find a new spot.
Well, they give us an hour, so whatever we don't have in an hour, they take.
Thursday morning, city camp removal crews showed up to this large site, taking up the sidewalk off Northwest Gleason.
I don't like blocking any driveway or walkway or... Definitely everybody's got to get around, so we try to keep it as clear as possible.
Which is hard to do with all he's collected over the years.
It is too much. Yeah, it's way too much. Yeah, it sucks.
Are they offering you any shelter?
No, not at all. I mean, they just say we have to move and that's all.
It's an unrelenting fight on all sides.
I feel that Portlanders should be able to live in a safe environment without having to fight for it every single day.
All right, so the city of Portland is in the middle of another lawsuit. You may remember a group of homeless people sued the city over their daytime ban on homeless camping, which was supposed to start this week. Well, that attorney you just heard from behind the ADA lawsuit is closely watching that case to see if it challenges the ADA settlement. Blair Best, KGW News.
Thank you, Blair. Earlier in the show, we asked for your comments on our big story. We do that a lot on this show because your comments help us all think more deeply about these subjects. Let's take a look at some of your thoughts following last night's big story on contaminated water in Eastern Oregon. That one focused on the regulators and the lack of regulation over the past 3 decades. Jan wrote to us to say it's unconscionable that EPA, DEQ, Morrow County, and the state of Oregon all turned a blind eye to the issue of contaminated groundwater. Clearly, greed won, and the low-income residents have been sacrificed. Not one government agency had the nerve to confront big money industry. How long do the people have to sit and watch these agencies fail the people they exist to serve? And Steve told us the complexity of solving this problem and who is responsible within all of the various local and state agencies sounds just like the efforts to solve the Portland homeless issues. Too much government becomes less effective instead of more effective. Hear that sound? That's the can being kicked down the road. And each night we've certainly received our fair share of messages like this one from Joe. What What are you trying to tell me that Eastern Oregonians, many or most of whom reject the idea of government regulation of private business, is upset that their wells have been contaminated and want the state to fix it? Guess that rugged individualism takes a potty break whenever they want something. Remember, during tomorrow's segment, we'll try to answer some of your questions that you've been sending us throughout the week. Things like, are the foods that they grow also contaminated with nitrates? Are they dangerous to eat? Keep your feedback and questions coming, will you? And be sure to tune in tomorrow at 6:30. In the meantime, that's the end of our show for tonight. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, our story, our collective story, it never ends. It goes on and on. The good stuff is coming up next, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.